Hey, welcome to Eflux Effects Tutorials. Today we're going to focus on something that I've seen where people don't really spend a lot of time on, which is we're going to go really in depth on when you're exporting characters, OBJ sequences, for example, from, we'll use Daz Studio, for example. And a lot of times when you bring this stuff in, we don't really spend the time to get everything where it needs to be so that it really looks solid. So we're going to kind of show you some next level tricks for After Effects and bringing objects in. So first thing we're going to do is set up a new comp. We're going to go with high def 1920 by 1080, 30 frames a second, and go ahead and click OK. Then create a new layer, solid. We're going to name this one element. Same thing, high def, 1920 by 1080. If you're not sure, just click make comp size. Color doesn't matter. Click OK. Now we're going to add the effect, which is element 3D. And there we go, video copilot element. And we're in. So now we're going to go ahead and set up the scene. So select scene, setup, and it'll open up element 3D. And the first thing to understand is when you're working with sequences that you don't use import, you'll actually go to the file. If you just go to import, you'll see it only bring in one frame. So go to file, import, and 3D sequence. You'll see I've already gone to where I have my sequence stored. Just navigate there, and what you want to do is pick the first frame and then click open. And it will open the preferences. You want to use auto normals. You can leave the opacity map off, model in center, and then the diffuse map, specular, and so on. And this is a physical shader, so click OK. And it's going to go ahead and load the sequence. And you'll see down below, you'll see all the materials load. But you'll notice you still don't see the character. So what you'll want to do is set that up. So if you go to the cross with the character selected or go down to transform, don't use the scale. Actually click on the normalize size and you'll see it pops right in. So pretty quickly we're able to get the character in, and now we can see it. But first thing you'll notice, the eyebrows, the eyes looks weird, the hair is atrocious. Clearly, you know, it's not what we'd want in our comp unless they're way in the background. But in this case, like I said, we're going to work on something so we can really bring these characters and make them fully useful. You also see some rough edges with the mesh. So we're going to fix all of that. The tutorial is going to be in detail, so it's going to take us a little while, but let's go ahead. So expand the character, and you know, we're going to go down. First thing we're going to do is we're going to go down to the eyelashes and just turn them off. And a lot of times what you see with tutorials is folks blow by this and they just turn off the eyelashes and they bring the character in bald. And that works, and then because the skin comes in pretty well. But what we'll want to do is fix this. So go to the eye reflection, and then if you'll look down on the over in the area by the presets, sorry, the physical material 22, that comes standard. And what we're going to do is we're going to grab the glass, and we're going to take the glass and just drag it on top of the reflection. I like to rename it so I don't lose track, and click OK. So what we've done is we've basically replaced the reflection with a glass, and then what we're going to do is if you collect the gear and scroll down to the advanced under the edit portion, you'll see the force opacity under the blend mode. And in this case for reflection, bring it down somewhere between 10 and 20. And you'll see why it comes later. And then when we start working with the environment, that value, you'll see why. So now go to the cornea, same thing, drag the glass, and just rename it so you remember what it is. Obviously you can turn it on and off and figure it out, but this is just a little easier. And go down to the same thing under the force opacity, and there you go. If you lower the value, usually around 75, 65, you'll see where the pupils in the eyes really come through. So we basically made these semi-transparent. They'll still reflect the environment if you want them, but the eyes now look crisp. But you'll see the below the eye, the white line, that's your tear duct. So just go over, same thing, replace tear with glass. And rename it, just double click on it, and yeah, it'll open up. And now it's darker, but for me, I actually even like it to be less. So I lower the opacity about 60%. And now I've got the eyes looking how I want them. And so that's done. So now if you do a close-up look, the eyes are gonna look good here. And again, you could turn off the hair and leave it here, but we'll take it one more step. So if you scroll down, you'll find, you'll see here's the uniforms, there's the eyelash there. We're going to turn it back on and we're going to fix it. So if you turn the eyelash on, again, you'll see basically the challenge is that it's a JPEG, and so it just shows as a picture. So it's not going to discern the eyelash itself. So open the material up by double clicking on it, and then find the eyelashes and right click and copy it. What we're going to do is we're going to bring it out of the composition and bring it over to our working directory, which I've just called hair tutorial, and paste it. So we've got the eyelash, the diffuse layer, which is all we need. And now what we're actually going to do is cancel out of this. And then we're going to cancel out of the diffuse textures, and we're going to go into Photoshop, and we're going to create a new excuse me, a new comp. And these textures are 2048 by 2048. So excuse me. So definitely get the size of that right, and then just click OK. And now you've got a 2048 by 2048 canvas. Go out to where you save the eyelashes and drag them in. And since hit enter to get the transform. So you can kind of see the problem here. First of all, it's got colors. The layers are visible, and that's why it's coming through. So we're going to get rid of those. So we're going to go click select and color range. And color range is really good. It'll help you identify an ultimate the background or the particular color you want. And so go in and select the eyedropper under sampled colors and sample the white, because we're trying to bring the eyelashes out. We'll actually delete the black borders. And now the other thing you can adjust is the fuzziness control. And what the fuzziness will do is you can see from just kind of, it almost turned it into from a real jumbled mess. Section preview, if you put it on none, that's what you see. I like working with the grayscale, and you'll see why, especially with some of the textures we get to later. So adjust the fuzziness till you get enough detail, but not too much. You can see as you increase it, it pulls everything back, and you won't really get a good mask if you pull it back too much. And of course, if you take it all the way to 0, you're not going to get anything very good. So in this case, I'm going to try 18, click OK, and you'll see, there we go. You see the marching ants we're all familiar with from Photoshop, and you're going to make sure you hit Shift and then select and mask. If you don't hit the Shift, you won't get this property screen. And now we're going to start working on the eyelashes and condition them. Ultimately, first thing you want to do is invert. You can invert it before you get here. I just choose to do it at this point. And now I've got the eyelashes back. And then you have the different controls. You can see the smart radius doesn't really do anything for you for the edge detection. The shift edge I use a lot, and you'll see it here. It kind of brings the edge out a little bit and adds a little more detail so that the eyelashes will be a little more pronounced. You can use the contrast if you want to darken things up a little bit, and really just kind of get it. Stay away. The smooth, doesn't do a lot for you, so stay away from that. And now we're going to go output. We want the new layer and layer mask. Having a little problem with the mouse. Here we go. All right. So once we get it set, we've got it where we want it, and we're going to click OK. And that will, there we go. So now we have the eyelashes out. We're not done. The layer and layer mask is looking good, but we're going to go ahead and select layer and adjustment layer and hue saturation. Now we can do a lot of things, and then click OK. And see, it comes in. It's basically a mask. So it comes in. What I like is if you want to change the shade here, you can. It also allows you to bring the image define the image a little better, or lighten it as well, and you can desaturate, which can make it easier to add color back when we get into After Effects. So pick what you want. I want it to get this where we can get some long lashes. I like that. And now we've got to clean this up a little bit. One, you see the diffuse layer isn't totally, the image isn't totally clear in the background, so it's not fully transparent. So what I do is pick the magic eraser tool, and it's very important. Don't click on the hue saturation mask. Just go over and click on the image, because we're going to clean this up. So we have a little work to do. So we're going to come in here, and there we go. And you can see as you click on them with the magic eraser, it's getting rid of the black, and it's cleaning, you know, everything up. And so that the only thing will come into After Effects will be the eyebrows themselves. And sometimes I have to zoom in on these, just if you have a problem selecting them. You can also go in and clean this up with the eraser tool if there's things you don't like. And with some of the hair, you'll see where that could benefit. So anyway, sorry, having a problem with that. And you'll notice where the area that was white wasn't fully clear. I just clicked on it, and then the magic eraser just took care of it. So now I've got a good set of eyelashes that I can bring into After Effects. So go down to File, Export, and Export As. We're going to do this as a transparent PNG, and so we'll go with transparency. Of course, make sure it's the right size, and just click Export All. Go over to your working directory and give it a name. And I'm just going to put new lashes, gets the point, and then save it. And there we go. So now we can go back into Element. And let me just close some windows, and we're going to replace the default eyelashes with the new ones. So we just go over, just double click on the diffuse texture, go to the directory, grab the new lashes, click open, and all it did was change it. It didn't improve anything, right? So don't give up. By the way, if you want to go back to the white and brown, you can go over to the invert, and it'll make it look like it did before we start it. Either way, it's going to work, and you'll see why here in a second, but you can invert it. You can also adjust your brightness, contrast at this point if you're trying to bring out certain parts of the image. But more importantly now, go back down to the gear and go to the alpha threshold. And as you increase the alpha threshold, you can see what's happening. It's pulling back it's eliminating the transparency, and it's pulling back on the eyelashes themselves. So you can just play with that number till you get the number you like. I'm around 59, and I kind of like that. I think that's good. You know, it might be a little heavy, but I like it. So now we're going to go back up to the diffuse layer, or we can go into the new lashes and click off the invert, and we'll get the closer to the color we want. But I still don't like that because it doesn't match the eyebrows. So go down to the basic settings under diffuse, and since the hair is kind of red, just leave it in the red tones, but just darken it up till it matches, and click OK. And look at that. We got some eyelashes. And they match the eyebrows and the face, and I think it's looking pretty good. So we're going to use that same approach to the hair and everything else, but I'm going to show you something here real quick. Go up and select the character, and then if you go down to what it looks like the window panes, which is the surface options, and you'll see we have auto normals, which when we initially set the character up, we use that. We have the normal threshold, and I want to just show you, if you go to 0, you can see it makes the character rougher. Of course, it will render faster then. And if you bring it out, in this case, all the way to 180 to get what I want, you can see how everything's smoothed out, especially the fingers. The other thing is you'll see the edge mode, disconnect it or connect it. If there's any disconnected edges, it'll connect it if you select it. And then you've got the subdivision level, excuse me. This will multiply the number of faces times the value you select. A character like this has 222,000. If you do decide to increase the mesh, go take lunch or a nap, because it's going to take a while. So be a little patient if you want to even smooth it out further. I don't think it's necessary. I'm pretty happy with what I get. So now we're going to look at the beard. So the next thing we want to look at is, so right now it's a clumpy mess. And if we leave it, you know, it'd be frankly better to turn it off. But we can fix it using the same approach we just used. So I'm going to go down and I'm going to find the beard and I'm going to click on that and I'm going to follow the same exact process. You can see you can see the difference, right? And so now go to the diffuse. You don't have to worry about the gloss or the normal or bump. It doesn't matter. So click the beard. It was beard 1_D. You can see that there. And just same thing, copy it out to your working directory. I don't work with the native files because for me, I don't want to take a chance on messing up the original. So I take a copy over to the working directory and paste it in. So now we're going to do the same thing. Now this texture is 512 by 512. You can find that out by just holding the cursor over the image. And we're going to go back into Photoshop. And click New. And once we click New, we just go ahead and adjust the width and the height. If it says anything but pixels, just change it, no big deal. And we've got that, and just click OK. And now we can just drag the image in and begin working on it. So it's going to be the same exact process as we used for the eyelashes. Hit Enter to get out of the transpose, and then we'll want to, the image, we'll need to rasterize the image at some point here. There's a couple ways to do it. You can click on the image, or you can just right click and go rasterize layer. You will need to do that to make all this work. So we've got the layer selected. Just go select and color range again. And this time, again, we've got the sampled colors. I'll show the drop-down menu again. And you'll see if you wanted to focus on a particular color, you can. Highlights, mid, shadow. I've been told, I haven't used it, but the skin tones don't work very well. But for this purpose, we just want to sample the background. So we'll use the sampled colors. And there you go. So I got the background selected, and now show you a few things on the preview, right? None. It looks just like the raw image, and you can see what the selection looks like over in the small window. You can work with the white, which is essentially right the invert, but it can sometimes give you a good feeling of how much detail you've got. And then same thing. You'll only have one slider. You can see there at 0. It's a mess, right? That wouldn't. I don't think that would look good. You know, that's not the purpose of here. So, but you don't want to pull it back too much. So in this case, what are we thinking? Sometimes it's a little goofy to get it right around, yeah, there we go, 28. I like that. So let's see if it's enough. And if it doesn't catch enough, just go back in and try a different fuzziness factor. And again, once you get out of there, you see the traditional, the marching ants. And so you know whether that's your mask, right? So hold Shift and select and mask. Again, if you don't hold Shift, this won't work. You won't get the all the controls you're going to get here. So we're going to go down to Shift Edge again and play with it. And you notice I haven't inverted it yet. And sometimes it helps to set everything up before you invert it. Kind of gives you an idea of how the mask is. Sometimes it's a little clearer. And then click invert, and there we go. Now we got the hair. See what I mean? It gives me a good indication, but I can definitely see where sometimes the invert helps me out. And so I'm going to play around with the Shift Edge. I use it quite a bit when I'm doing the hair. One thing I'll mention is that you can go in and clean it up if there's things you don't like, if there's areas that you don't feel are clear the way you want it. It's a little tedious with hair, but you do have that option, and there are other ways you can play with it. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on here. I will tell you, if you feather it, keep it very light touch on something, especially where we're doing the hair. Other materials could mean anything, and I just move the smooth just to show you. I mean, for hair, it doesn't give you anything of value. We want the hair to look crisp, like it's actually growing. So same thing. Now we'll go out and we'll do our selection and new layer and layer mask, and we're ready to go. And all we got to do is click OK. And we have our our image ready to go. And we can go up here to layer again and adjustment layer and hue saturation. You can use levels, you can use curves. You know, it's all up to your preference. So play around with these things and find out what works for you. And you can see what the lightness slider does. I'm gonna darken it up just a little bit, get a little better definition, and especially with the beard, you'll see when we bring it in what it does for you. If you want to, I don't mess with the hue a lot. Again, at this point, I mentioned that before, because I'd rather do the color in Element. So now I just go over same thing, File, Export as, PNG, 512 by 512, we're good. Give it a name, and we'll just call it New Beard. And go back to After Effects, click on the diffuse layer for the beard, double click on that, go to the directory where we just stored all this information, and the picture and the PNG, excuse me, and just select it, and there we go. And same thing, it does absolutely nothing at this point. Just click OK. And you don't need to, again, worry about the glossiness, which is your specular or the bump. We go right down, click the gear, and select the gear, and go to the alpha threshold. And you can keep it really light, or you can make it a little heavier. It's completely up to you, but you can see how with just the alpha threshold, you have a lot of options here. And when we do the environment, we'll go and talk a little bit more about, you know, coloring it, making sure it's shaded, how it reacts to the light for you. But you can see how, you know, it's starting to look real. So we've got good eyelashes, we've got the eyes and the beard. So the hair, well, it's 3 layers. We're going to use the same exact approach. You can skip the hair if you want. Again, for this tutorial, I wanted to go in depth, and you can go to the next section, which will be covering the materials and then the environment. But I'm going to still walk through it. In this case, there's 3 layers of hair, and I'm going to walk through and just explain again how and why I made the decisions and what's the benefit and other things you can do to make it look even better. So again, if you think you got it and you want to just do it, just skip, and that will, again, save you some time, because we'll probably spend another 20 minutes getting the hair right. So you can see there, the hair 3 really is just a catch-all. It's really underneath all the other layers, and it's just to make things look a little more consistent. So I'm going to start with hair 3, and I'm going to do the diffuse layer. Same thing, just click, double click, find the hair 3 diffuse. I'm going to copy it out of there to the working directory. You can copy all 3 right now. I'm doing it one at a time, again, just to, you know, do the most basic steps. And again, once you learn this, you can accelerate several of these steps and get things done a little quicker, kind of anticipate. And now we're going to X out of it. And just like before, we're going to go into Photoshop. And this is 512 by 512, new, just select File and New. Now we're going to drag the hair 3 in, and let's hit Enter to get out of the transposition, and we're ready to go. So it's a tough one, but color range does great. Select it. Again, we're going to do the sampled colors. I've been impressed. Now you're going to notice there's kind of a clump over there on the right. What I would do for something, if I was doing a lot of close-ups, I would break that up. I would actually use 2 layers and do this twice. I would do the edges in separate from the middle, just by, you know, again, if you use multiple layers and some masks, you can set it up so you don't see anything rough, but you get a little cleaner image in those. But since this is underneath, it's okay. So you know, and again, now I played with the fuzziness to where I wanted it, and of course I clicked OK, and I think it looks good. Shift, you know, select and mask, and then look what I got. It doesn't look very good, and here's where the shift edge can really save. Now sometimes you'll want to get out of it and just just do it over again. Just change the fuzziness factor, use it, lower it, and it'll capture more, or again raise it. So don't be afraid to get out and try different different techniques. The nice thing about the shift edge, though, is if you don't get your mask just where you want it, it can kind of save you a little time. So again, now we're just going to output to new layer and layer mask. This is all pretty standard stuff. Click OK. And I like the way that looks. It came out pretty good. And like I said, if anything, that area on the right, I'm not thrilled with, but I'm not going to change it. And when this is all done, you'll see why. So export, export as, PNG, looks good. Pretty clean. And now I'm just going to export it, give it a name. And click Save. Now we go back into Element 3D, and same thing. We're going to select the diffuse layers, select, go to the working directory, and we're going to put a new layer. And you'll notice we're not going in and doing custom layers where you'll see that in a lot of tutorials where you go outside, you put the these directly into the you know, you put them as you drag them into your comp, and then you reference them externally to Element, and I don't know, it works for some things, but for this, I just do everything inside Element 3D. I don't go outside to After Effects for this, and you can see the areas where it was where it really wasn't clean, where it was solid, and it kind of gives you a look here as you know as we pulled the alpha threshold up. And I know I'm talking a little bit outside of what we're actually doing because I'm trying to add some more insight. Again, you know, it's the same exact process for each diffuse layer and each layer. So now we're going to hair 2. It's some highlights. Same thing. Click into the diffuse, get it, copy it to your working directory. And we'll paste it in and then bring it into Photoshop. You know, to do that, always remember to cancel out and create a new file, new 512 by 512. Click OK. Grab the image, just drag it in, and hit enter, and we're ready to go. Same as always, just go ahead and select, and we're going to color range and take a look. Got it kind of at 42 here. Again, we can play with the fuzziness till we get something we like. You can see the hair for this one has a little different look. Each one kind of has a different look. It gives it a nice texture actually when they're all layered, and I like that. So I'm going to try 48, and if you look here, it's not the best mask. I don't like what's selected, so I'm going to go back up into the color range. I'm just going to undo it by Control D, and then I'm going to bring the fuzziness down, and I'm going to try it. I like 19. Yeah, that'll work. And now when we come in, we can see it's going to create a much better mask. So we're going to hit Shift and select a mask, and same thing, we invert it. We can see the hair that we want, and then we can look around with, you know, we can increase it, make it a little sharper with the shift edge. And you'll see again, I'm very generous when I use that, and I don't smooth and I don't feather. So we're going to do the new layer with layer mask, and we're going to click OK. And then we're going to do an adjustment layer. You don't have to, but it definitely gives you some options. And like I said, it can really help you. It can really make a difference in just getting everything really crisp. So it's going to look that much better when we get things finalized. Same thing, you know, you can always touch this up, but this one looks pretty good. So we're going to go ahead and export as. And there you go. Pretty straightforward. So you'll notice we never really have to change any of the settings. Export all, give it a name. too, so I can keep track of it, and we're good. We'll go back into Element 3D, and we'll get this looking good, and we'll go to the last layer of hair. So same thing, click on the hair, go down to the working directory. You'll notice people use the drop downs. You can get to the same place with the drop downs, but what I found is you just double click on it and it'll walk you right to the directory. It's the simplest way. Click on the new hair. Now it's in. Click OK. Same thing. Click the wheel. Go to the alpha threshold below force and opacity and play with it till you get the highlights looking like you want them. And like I said, and you can adjust these afterwards. And if you don't like the final version, go back in and you can even take the layer back into Photoshop or start over. It's as you can see, it really isn't a long process. So just take your time and you'll get it where you want it to be, and that obviously is the main thing. Now we're going to do the last bit of hair. You can see it's over the top, so it's really not showing any of the work we've done, but it's not a problem. Select the picture frame, again the diffuse layer. This is the hair D1. Copy it out to your working directory, and once we've got that done, we're just gonna kind of walk through it again, and each time just be very methodical, and this way you don't lose track of where your files are and you don't inadvertently write over any of your master files. So it is important. Of course, cancel out just like always and hop into Photoshop, File, New, 512 by 512 comp, OK. Go out and drag the D1 in and hit enter to get out of the transpose, and zoomed in here a little bit, but so you can see it a little better, but hit select and color range, and I always like to repick the background, even though for these they tend to be the same. Then play with the fuzziness slider till you get what you want, and it's, again, there may be some trial and error, and I'm doing this in one pass, but I would definitely recommend that you spend time to find the look that works for you. I like when I feel like I have a good mask, so I look at the marching ants, and you'll notice because I selected the brush, so I had to go over here and take the marquee tool, hit enter, and select a mask. So yeah, if you don't see the option, just select your marquee or your lasso tool. Now I'm going to play around with the shift edge, and now we've got a little bit of contrast. I'm going to try that, and so now we're going to go selection, new layer with mask, and click OK. And now we have our layer with semi-transparency. Might have been a little heavy-handed. Let's see how it is. And the alpha control sometimes will correct for that as well. So click OK, and we can play with the lightness a little bit, even make it darker, and desaturate it a little bit. And I like that. I want to try that, see how that looks, and then we'll, like I said, we can make adjustments. So we're going to go export as, and just click export all and give it a name. Now we'll go back into Element and walk through it again. Let's put the new, click on there. Let's go ahead and go to the working directory. Let's put the new diffuse layer in there, and let's see how it looks. So we're going to go ahead and select that, and of course we won't find anything, but we're going to go straight down to the alpha controls, and then of course you can scroll down or use the shortcut alpha threshold and play in there, and check that out. Right, I just want to show you, even though it felt heavy-handed, it actually helped give him a thicker look to his hair. So when we play with the environment, we'll fix some of the funny glow and that's specularity that's kind of making it look a little bit weird with the lights. There is no environment applied right now. So, you know, was second guessing myself when we started, but as you can see, with a little effort, it actually ended up looking really good. It filled the whole thing in. So I'm actually happy with that. So let's put an environment. Go down to environments. I don't have any extra ones. I'm gonna use the town. It's kind of got a blue tint to it. You know, pick the environment you want, and then kind of you can adjust it. But I just want to show you some of the difference. And look at the eyes on some of these. And it's pretty cool how the eyes will pick up the reflections. And we'll play with those adjustments as well. Basically, the environmental multiplier to get exactly what we want. But in this case, we're going to go with the town. You can turn the environment on if you want to see it. And there are a lot of, I'll put some links if there are a lot of places you can get free environments. You just got to search for it. So I'm going to brighten it up a little bit. You can play with the gamma, saturation, whatever you want. But I'm just going to brighten it up. You can desaturate it. You can add some contrast. So there you go. Don't oversaturate it, right? So I think that's good. Now I'm going to click OK. It's got a little bit of a blue tint, but for this scene, that's what I want. And you see I've got the hair, and so if you look, see, you can, with the specular, hair's not going to really, reflect a lot. So I'm dropping those down below 10, and then I'm going to bring the environmental multiplier out of it quite a bit, because I don't really like, for me, I don't like the hair to glow. Now you can see where, because we use the alpha layer, you can see some of the lower layers. So we've got to go in and do the same thing. So we're going to pull some most of the specularity out, and then lower the environmental multiplier. Let's see where I want it. I've got it really low for that layer, around 12. And you can pick whatever values work for you. And but I like the way that looks, and so I'm going to stay with those numbers. Same thing for the bottom layer. Just bring it out, and you can see there. And if you want to add like different tints to the different layers, see how that, you know, what kind of look that gives you. You have a lot of options. So now you've also got the beard and the face, and overall it's starting to look good. And there are some other options, some things I've shown in some other work I've shared for this tutorial. I'll leave that alone. We'll leave that at the for another tutorial. As far as the here, I want to adjust the eyelashes a little bit. I want to make them a little more pronounced, but we'll but again, you see, just go the alpha threshold, one control, and you can really set up how much you like that or don't. And you can see some of the edges aren't perfect on the hair. You can clean those up. That's what I was telling you. Just spend a little time, but you'll have to clean them up in in Photoshop, and you can bring it in and see how it looks. And then if it's not what you want, go back, change it again. Just if you use masks, it's easy, right? And so here's something, right? Go to the materials. I'll show you a trick I saw someone use. I did not come up with this, and I apologize to the person who I do not remember who it was. I just saw it one time. So go to the diffuse texture and copy it. It's very important that you copy it, trust me. And then drag the face to drag the SS real, the subsurface scattering, I think is how you say it. And then you'll see what I did. I right-clicked on the diffuse because it'll disappear when you bring the when you change the parameter on the face. And so then you just paste it right back in, and then you go to diffuse color and just bring it all the way over to white. And now you can play with the glossiness, so you can see, and you can create a little bit of a edge glow that kind of looks cool. And play with your multipliers, and again, I like it to be really subtle. But again, you can determine how your scene's lit and everything else, and it again gives it a little more realistic look. Now, the one thing I will tell you is you got to do it to every piece of exposed skin, otherwise it'll look funny. So here's the head. Same thing, drag that up. Forgot to copy the diffuse layer. You don't have to copy any of the others, only diffuse. Drag it over to the head and drop it in and paste back. Right click and paste back the material you just copied, and then go to the diffuse color, bring it all the way to white, click OK. And I'm only focusing on the glow. I'm checking my settings right now. You'll want to match, and then I'm also making sure I remember to label it so I don't forget which layer's which. And you could use a little bit of color in there, and again, just it really depends on what you're looking for. I'm really only bringing it in for the to get that kind of, again, that little edge glow with the glossiness. So you can double click and type them in, or just stretch whatever the values, whatever works for you. And you can see I'm not happy with the face at all. Let me figure out what I did. Go back up to face, and again, it's an iterative process, and I'll bet you I know what I did. The environmental multiply. There you go. For these, you can't bring the environmental too far down because the material that we apply to the face will react to it. So there you go. I think that's better. There we go. And now we'll do the head, same values, and we'll have to do the neck. Now, you would want to do the hands. That's really the only other exposed in the ears. I won't necessarily do them here, but you can just see the process. And then, again, it gives you that a little bit of sheen, and that could make for some interesting possibilities when you're actually making your scene in After Effects. So I'm going to bring the SSS reel over again to the neck, go up, copy the diffuse layer, and then fortunately for Control Z, I keep putting it in the wrong place. There we go. And rename it neck, and paste the diffuse layer back, and diffuse color back to all the way to white, and then change the all the values here to match. Now, for some reason, when you bring these models in, if you're not careful, you will see kind of a break line. Depending on your scene, you can spend more time. You can work on the lighting and the color, and you can get those lined up better than it is there. But this is already a long tutorial, so I'm not going to do that. So, and I'm going to look here a little bit at the beard, see if I want to do anything different. So you can, let's see, looking at maybe adding some contrast here, as you can see. Whoops, let me see what I can find. Okay, I like that. So just wanted to change that a little bit. I think that's looking, yeah, that's looking better. So now a little bit of another process, take a little bit of time, but we're going to go through the materials. And once we go through the first one, my suggestion is that you can kind of skip that part if you don't have any questions. It's the same. It's the same effort for each piece, each material item. So we're going to come down here to the normal bump, and you can see when you go in there, if you don't remember or you don't know the path to the regular materials, so drop out of there. So how do you find it? It's usually pretty easy. Just click on the diffuse. Well, let's try it again. Double click. And there you go. There's the directory. So you can just select it and Control C. And now you've got the path copied. Get out of there. And now we'll go into the bump layer and click on the textures and put the new path in. And now we're going to go, this is a t-shirt, so we're going to find the t-shirt with the diffuse layer has a D at the end of it. And just follow it over, or a B, excuse me. We're looking at the bump layer, sorry about that. So there it is. So now we've got the and you can already see the difference, and then you can exaggerate it, you know, do the convert bump. And I like it because look at the difference in the shirt. I mean, and then it's, you know, you can control with the amount of bump, how it interacts with the light. And I just think that gives it just a completely different look and a much better look to it, much more realistic, less flat. And I turned off the torso protection so you could see that, and we're going to do the same thing. And we're going to click OK once we bring... Oh, and one thing I guess I forgot to mention is once you find the path for the first bump, sequentially, every other one you select will go to that same location. So it actually, you don't have to find it. It's not quite the same as what we were doing with the hair where you had to copy and move stuff. It'll move it very quickly, and again you'll select the values you want, and you know, you see I'm not really spending a lot of time with the gloss or the specular. You'll want to do that for really sharp looking you know, character. On these, from these Daz, by the way, I find that the normal maps don't work as well. You know, you can try that for yourself. Some won't have the bump; they'll have a normal map, and you can try that, and you can convert them too. I think Photoshop you can do that, but I've not messed with that. I've not had to. But for these, fortunately, the bump maps work, and I find they work pretty well. Now, you will notice there's a problem with the gloves, the hand coming through. There's really nothing, you know, sometimes if you see skin coming through on a character, just turn off that part of the body, but we clearly can't turn off the hands. So what I would let you know that there are different tricks you can do. In that case, what I would probably do is just go over and paint that part of the hands black, you know, in Photoshop, and change out the material for the hands. I won't do that here, but again, because I think you see the process that we did with the hair. So don't be afraid. Again, if this is a close-up, because like this is a scene where the guy's throwing a punch, and you really want those knuckles to be sharp, just select because it's the skin of the fingers coming through, and you're not going to, you know, you're not going to stop that in Element. You know, there are other programs where, including when you're in Daz, where you can actually fix that, but really not in Element 3D. It doesn't give you anything that powerful. And so because we can't paint inside of this, so the easiest thing to do is just throw it out to Photoshop, paint the knuckles, and bring it back in. And you'll see each one, we're just adjusting the bump map to whatever we want it to be, and it's getting everything look. And by the way, you'll notice we used model center when we brought it in, and that's why you'll see the grid through the center. You know, we could definitely move that down to the feet. We could have changed some of the settings when we imported it, but it absolutely, I like to keep it set at the center. Don't have a specific reason that it works one way better than the other, just happen to like it. And here we go. So we're getting the leg protection where we want it. You know, in fact, if you go pretty far, you can make it look pretty worn out, right? And there are things we can do in Subsurface Painter and things like that as well, just so you know, to make it look more used if we want it. But again, not here. Do it in Photoshop too with some grunge layers. But again, we don't need to do any of that. So doing the same thing on every one of these, just finding the bump map for the particular item. Just look for the B and the name and convert it, adjust it to where you want it. It's the same adjustments, but you can see now when you look at it, it's got depth, right? And that's what's great about bump maps. You know, it's kind of a cheat, right? Because they're using the bump map to make the different, you know, the difference that these things look thicker, but it's not actually changing the texture. It's changing the way it reacts with light. It's pretty cool. So again, and you'll notice here we're just loading textures again because there's not an existing texture, and nothing wrong with that. And again, same thing with the gloves. Adjust them where you want them, and you can go with the bump maps negative. I've not had that situation for what I've been using them for, but I've always assumed it just kind of inverts it, but haven't messed around with it a lot. The boots, same thing. you know, everything here is really clean. So one of the things I would absolutely do if I, you know, if I was actually creating a scene with this character that was real, I'd go in and add some dirt on the boots. But, you know, again, just bring it into Photoshop and make those changes to the diffuse layer, or, you know, and they'll show up, and you can really you can do some cool stuff, and just you know, decide what looks best for you. You can see you can go beyond 100% on the bump amount, and get it where you want it, and click OK. And what do we got? We got 2 more. So let's do the belt, and same thing. We're going to find the belt and the bump map. Click OK. Put convert bump. There you go. And find the adjustment that looks about right for you. And you notice I don't want it overreact to light, so I've pulled a lot of the bumps back a little bit so the textures aren't really drastic. And then the last one is the kind of the shoulder protection. And I'm not bringing in the glossiness. You can put the specular in the glossy layer, but it's up to you. I mean, right? You can play around with it. I'm not going to do it for this tutorial. You can clearly, it's the same exact process of what we're doing here. So again, if you want a little bit more glossy in your character and specularity, just go ahead. I'm going to turn the grid off here for a second. Just click the little television looking thing, and there you go. And so that's like really close to what we want. And the let's see, is there anything else? Oh, one of the things I always recommend, anything that's not visible, turn it off. I mean, this thing's got toenails, right? You don't want to redraw toenails. It's never going to see it. Just let's see, shoulders, same thing. And if there's neck, we got to leave. Hips, we don't. Torso's invisible on this. And you know, the forearms are visible. Sometimes if you're just wearing a regular shirt, they're not. Feet clearly are not visible. Can't see the tongue and stuff. You can, in the inner mouth, you can take those off as well. That'll make it a little easier to draw this for when you bring it into After Effects, which it can occasionally challenge itself a little bit. And I'm going to play around with some of the settings for the t-shirt and see what we've... if we got anything that I like a little better and what it's showing, how it reacts to the environments. And not too bad. And you can go through each one. You can work with the refraction, the subsurface scattering. You know, if it's skin or like a flower or something, it's very translucent. The subsurface scattering can be, you know, it can be a really nice effect. As you can see, we used it a little bit on the face. That's what the SSS reel was. So now click OK. We're done. And give it a second to process because we've been in Element for a while. So it'll take a minute. That's it. So I really appreciate, you know, you staying with me, and I hope this tutorial really showed you how to bring a Daz character into play for use in After Effects. And please, you'll see there the Soldier Within. That's our latest short film. So give it a shot, take a look at it, and again, hope you had a good time. Have a good one.